Okay, we are in Orchot Tzaddikim. Please subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, hit the notification so you can always know when a new class is being given, and that will come on the top of your YouTube so you'll never miss a class. We're on the third gate. We're on page 143. It's called the Gate of Shame, the Gate of Sha'are Busha. Busha is a very important thing to have, as we'll find out. So the sages have said that intellect is shame and shame is intellect. And he explains what that means. He says intellect is shame. A person's sense of shame is derived from his intellect. It is an expression of man's understanding of the situation he is in. And the other way, and shame is intellect. To the extent that a man feels shame, can his level of intellect be known. In other words, the higher the level of one's intellect, the more he senses the degree of shame that should be felt in any given situation. So you have a little kid can walk around naked because he has no shame. We, on the other hand, cannot walk around naked because we have shame. Okay? That's why even when you go into a locker room, you put a towel around you. Even if obviously all men there or all women, they still shame that there's busha. Shame is a wrong word, but as busha, there's a level of I don't want you to see certain things. So it's not a negative. Shame is a negative in English. So busha is not a negative. That's my point. Embarrassment is not a negative. It's modesty. I have a sense of modesty that I don't want certain people to see certain things. Okay. So he says, for about Adam and Chava, it is written, and they were both naked, the man and his wife, and they were not ashamed. Now he's going to take this in a certain way, but I want to be totally straight with this. The reason they could walk around and they weren't ashamed, they had no busha, was because they, like animals, when they saw their private parts, they only understood it to be for the mitzvah of procreation. Just like I don't have to cover my arm in summertime because it's just part of me, okay? It's of my face, so on and so forth. Those things which we normally don't cover. It's not that there's no busha involved in that. People can see that, okay? But when it comes to, so anything that I'm going to do a mitzvah with is not, you don't have to cover up. So here, when they were naked, all they saw was their body parts in the service of Hashem. So there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's no busha involved in there. Okay, so that's why they could walk around naked and, as it says, would not be ashamed. The same way as we would walk around with short sleeves. Okay, and they did not know the way of modesty, nor have the ability to differentiate between good and evil until they ate from the tree of knowledge, as is written, and the eyes of both of them were opened. And again, Rashi explains, you see it's in number 3, Rashi explains that this does not mean their eyes literally opened, rather that they were now intellectually aware of their nakedness, thus allowing shame to surface. This is borne out by the use of the word vayada'u, and they knew or understood that they were naked, hence the connection between intellect and shame. Again, let's be, the other explanation of they knew they were naked was they had one mitzvah in the world, namely not to eat of the fruit of the tree, and they lost that because they broke that. So they were naked of mitzvot. That's another way to interpret that. But the Orchot Tzaddikim wants to say that their embarrassment was because now they had intellect and understood that there was more than just mitzvah here. Okay, fine. So thus all living creatures, with the exception of man, do not have shame because they do not have wisdom. And all who are wise of heart know the value of intellect and wisdom, through which one attains the truth of things, and through which one reaches the level to praise the oneness of his Creator, blessed be He, and His divine service, and through which he is able in some way to become like angels. And he explains, and though, in other words, enabling him to attain true intellect through recognizing his Creator and being aware of worldly matters. Okay, so that is step 1. So busha, again, this embarrassment or shame is the gate to wisdom. Because if I have this busha and I have this sense of modesty, I'm going to. It's also going to stop arrogance. right? Because what's arrogance? It's the exact lack of busha. I'm showing I'm better than everybody, or I want to be better. And here, busha is allowing me to learn from you rather than not being able to learn from you. Arrogance stops me from learning from you. Busha allows me to learn from you. Okay? So he says, because the quality of wisdom is so great, it must be paralleled in greatness by its related trait, that of shame. Their being comparable is clearly shown by the fact that none who have shame lack knowledge, and none who have knowledge lack shame. Therefore, one should exert himself to conduct himself in accordance with this noble trait, becoming wise until it is implanted in his soul, to empower it above all of his impulses, and to regard it as more important than his other traits, for through it one attains most of the virtues and guards himself against all disgraceful traits. The trait of shame is a great fence and an iron barrier against all of the transgressions, since man commits many transgressions in private that he would be ashamed to commit in public. Now, I want you to think about that. Okay, we do a lot of things in private. We assume nobody's watching us, and yet if people would watch us, we wouldn't do it. That's the whole art of shoplifting, right? The whole art of shoplifting is you don't want somebody to see you do it. Why? Because you want to get away with something you know is wrong. That's all. Okay, so it's a challenge, it's a rush, whatever they want to argue that. But it's wrong, so you don't want to do it. When do you speak slander? When the person's not there to hear it. And you say, if the person showered, stayed in front of him. No, you wouldn't, you're a liar. The fact of the matter is he's not here. And you looked around to make sure, nobody's here? Okay, let me tell you. Okay? Or when the people I've seen people when they want to use a derogatory term, or the N-word. No. Okay. And they look around. Can I say that? Yeah, that. Okay. Yeah, and they look around. Can we say that? They whisper too. Okay. But the point is, people are ashamed. So when people are ashamed, they look around and figure out what's going on. And he said, so that's a gate of if you can implant this shame properly into your soul, so you're never going to even do it, regardless of who's watching, or nobody. And so he says, as our sages stated, when Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai was on his deathbed, his disciples said to him, "Oh, our teacher, bless us." He responded, "May it be Hashem's will that the fear of heaven be upon you as the fear of flesh and blood." They looked at him. They questioned, "Only so much and no more?" He answered, "If only that." Okay? So here we all think we're so good. We fear God. We have awe of God. We do blah, blah, blah. Okay? And in the end, he's saying, you should fear God. You should have awe of God as much as you do for man. And they're saying, that's nothing. He says, no, you should have that. He says, the proof is that when man commits a transgression, he says, "May no man see me." All this is because one is afraid of being brought to shame. And it is commendable that one depart from transgression, even out of shame before man. For in doing so, even not for the sake of heaven, he will come to do so for the sake of heaven. Okay? By the way, if you want an example of this, think of the seatbelt law. Seatbelts came into last century. So it was probably 1980s when they became 1990 they became militant, I think, with seatbelts. Click it or ticket, right?
Oh, I think it varied by state or
right. But I think it was in the 90s.
In terms of new cars, I think it was 67, something like that. It's late 60s that they became federally mandated, but I'm not sure. I think it varied by location. Bill, what do you remember about that? Where they implemented as a law that you had to be wearing it?
Well, it wasn't. It was in the 60s because nobody was wearing seatbelts in the 60s. I don't think it was mandated yet. I think in the 60s they were wearing it.
Yeah.
But in the 80s to 90s, certainly it was becoming a major issue to wear it. Okay, so in Massachusetts, I remember there was you had to click it. The only way they could stop you, though, the only way to give you a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt was if you did something else wrong. They couldn't stop you for with a seatbelt. But if you're going over the speed limit or something like that, they could stop you and then they could give you a fine. Okay, so what happened was my father hated seatbelts.
Yeah.
Because the other side of the seatbelt was people with seatbelts die.
Yeah,
Okay?
I used to hear
There's a whole thing that if you can't move head-on collision, you have to be able to move. Okay, there's a whole thing with that. Yep. But see, he never liked to do it. But when the cop was there, he would put it over the shoulder, but he wouldn't click it. I was saying, Dad, you can hurt yourself more than just to do it, just to avoid the thing. But anyway, so I was brought up saying, it doesn't really mean anything. What's the seatbelt? So what happened was, when we had kids, so we always told the kids, you have to buckle up. That's the law. You have to buckle up. We were in Maine at that point. You have to buckle up. So then I said to myself, you know what? So I would buckle up because I wanted to be a good role model for my kids. Fine. And then what happened was, after a while, I said, this is stupid. I'm only doing it for them and not for me. Because what would happen is I would get in the car and I would just leave it off. But I would always know that the cops fine. I did to my father did, the minute I got with him, But then I said, this is stupid. I just started to do it, l'shem shamayim, as it were. And to this very day, when I get in the car, I just put the seatbelt on. It's not worth it to me. So if regardless, click a ticket, I don't really care. It's just not worth it to me because I'm telling the kids to do it. Yeah. So it became part of me. So even when the kids aren't there, I put it on. If somebody's in the car, I say, put the seatbelt on. I'm not going to be as militant as others who will not drive the car if you don't buckle. I say, that's your problem. But if I get a ticket, it's going to you. I'm not paying the ticket. You're paying the ticket. So, yeah.
Back in those early days when they first started before it became mandated to wear them, they started advising people because they said after the first few years went by, they had enough statistics to say statistically, your chances are much better with a seatbelt. You get it's going to, now and then it's going to jam and somebody's going to get stuck in the car and can't get out. But the odds are much better with you wearing it.
So my father's seatbelt was his arm. That was it. Boom. It hurt. I don't hurt worse than anything. Okay. But the good old days. Yeah, okay. But he says, but the highest form of shame is the shame before the Holy One, blessed be He, as is written, my God, I am ashamed and embarrassed. And he says, I am ashamed of myself, and I am embarrassed in front of others. That's what it means, according to the Malbim.
You read it in Slichos, yeah?
Yeah. I believe you do, yes. So it says, so I am ashamed and embarrassed to lift up my face to you, my God. And if you ask, how can I be ashamed before one whom I do not see with my eyes? So you must know in truth that although the Holy One, blessed be He, is hidden from the eyes of all living things, He is found in their hearts and revealed in their thoughts. He will attain the various levels of shame by reflecting in solitude, Hibodadu, once again we're back to Hibodadu, upon the blessing, the blessed one's greatness, and by constantly remembering the Holy One, blessed be He, who sees his deeds and searches his conscience and looks into his thoughts. So he said everything, and this is interesting that the Targum Kala said, that everything that man does in private will eventually be publicized to all. Okay, so whatever you think you're doing quietly is going to, sooner or later, is going to become public. Now, it could be as simple as you get sloppy, right? And so that then becomes a public issue because you did something. You get away with not wearing your seatbelt once, but then, and so on and so forth. But after a while, everybody sees it, and so that becomes public knowledge. With everything you're doing. People always, even when you're cheating, cheating on your spouse, okay? In reality, nobody should ever find out. But because you start bragging, or you get lazy, or you get spoiled, whatever the case is going to be, that's when it becomes a known thing, okay? And because it's a one-time event, it's not going to become known. It's an impossibility, unless there's cameras. So, okay? So he gives an example. Consider the following. You exit your house one morning to find a camera crew camped at your doorstep. They inform you that you will be followed and filmed the entire day. Every move, every step, every word, and every thought of yours will be captured on film. The cassette will be given to you at the end of the day for you to watch at your leisure. So imagine the pleasure derived at the sight of all the mitzvot and good deeds performed. But imagine also the feeling of shame when seeing the sins committed that day. And this is all when watching the show alone by yourself. Now imagine sitting in the theater packed with friends and relatives watching you draw your own conclusions. Okay, so again, even if I'm happy with my mistakes, or I'm not ashamed of the mistake, but I know that other people watching it, because I know people would say, I'd be proud of what I did. I'm a proud guy. Okay. But then, if you're so proud, now we're going to let you see everybody else watch it. Whoa. I'm not that proud. Let's keep that down. But that's really busha. So that's why it goes back to, we should have so much busha in front of God as we would in front of our friends or people finding out what we do. Nobody wants that. Okay. So he says, along these lines, one of the sages said, if you have been careful not to sin all of your days, do not ascribe merit to yourself, which means since the reason for this person not sinning is simply because he is ashamed of people and not because he is God-fearing, because abstention from transgression originates in shame before men. Therefore, one must be careful in this, taking heart when forsaking transgression, that he should not do so out of shame before men. Okay, again, it's a nice beginning, but that shouldn't be where the end all and be all. For the evil inclination draws him in this direction. And he says, if you do thus and so, people will shame you. Therefore, a man must place the highest priority upon knowing his Creator and recognizing his power, and pressing upon himself whom he is serving, whom he fears, whose mitzvot he is performing, and who has warned him. As David said to Shlomo his son, know the God of your father and serve him. He explains, accept and rely upon what I, David, your father, am telling you, until you are able to understand it on your own. David explained, David explains that David was instructing his son Shlomo to analyze this issue in order to understand it. If, however, Shlomo was unable to grasp it with his intellect, he still should not forsake it, for it is God, your father, the God of your father, and the father would never mislead his son. So even if I don't understand the mitzvah, and there's so many mitzvot out there that we don't understand, that's why we call them chukim. They're statutes, so we have no reason. There's no rational reason why we shouldn't do it. Okay, I'll give you an example. Not eating pork. There's no rational reason. It's not even health. For those who yell health, it's not true. Okay, it's stupidity. Okay, that's 17 minutes. I don't know who's watching. Okay, I can say it. 17 minutes. Okay, it's total stupidity to say health there, because non-Jews eat it all day and they don't die. Okay? So it's a clear proof. Okay. You also have, we're learning this week's parsha. We're going through the arayot, the forbidden women that you can't marry. Okay, if you go through the list, it doesn't make sense. I understand you shouldn't marry your mother. I understand you shouldn't marry your stepmother. Okay, I got it. No problem. Okay. I understand you shouldn't marry your sister. But what's wrong with your sister-in-law? What's wrong with your wife's sister after you divorced your wife? You didn't kill her. You got rid of her. Okay? So now marry her sister. Okay? What's wrong with that? There shouldn't be any problems. Okay? And then, okay, she's going to get jealous, blah, blah. They had I remember there was a whole TV show where the guy married 4 sisters or something. He got divorcing, and I forget the name of the show. But
one by one.
Yeah, I was thinking, usher. It's forbidden what you're doing. You can't do that. Okay? But these laws make no sense. There's no rational understanding to them. It's not genes. It's not weakening the genes. Nothing like that. It has nothing to do with that. Because, I can't marry my uncle's wife. Why? She's a total stranger. The gene pool is great. Well, you drop dead, I'll marry you. I'll marry my aunt. No, you can't marry your aunt. Okay. Now, by the way, when we think of aunt, we think of an old lady. Let's understand something. My aunt could be younger than me.
Yeah.
In certain family structures. So she could. I remember somebody when I was in yeshiva. I always remember this story. I went to pick up one of the rabbis for the yeshiva, and so I never met him. So I was picking him up, And so I ring the doorbell, and so the little kid comes to me, and I was a strapping young 20-year-old, whatever, 25, 23, something like that. And he says to me, "You want to meet my aunt?" I was saying, "Wow, Rabbi, I get to meet a girl here. Great." I said, "Yeah, I'd love to meet you." He brings out a little baby.
Oh, yeah.
Here's my aunt.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then I realized, oh yeah, of course. But it's but it made sense. Everything now made sense because my aunt. I'm thinking of my aunt as a, like I said, for me, my aunt was 40 years difference. So for him, okay, it would have worked. For 20 years difference, would have worked. But it's not. It's the exact opposite. So a little kid. So you can hear those things. But again, what's wrong with these people? Why shouldn't I marry them? Okay, but that's what I'm saying. All these things are chukim. Why can't I cook meat with milk? What's wrong with it? Why can't I have a good cheeseburger? Again, you have a cheeseburger. Does it kill you? No, you enjoy it with the lobster and everything else. Great. You have lobster?
Oh, no.
No, you wouldn't touch that. Okay.
No
break away from that.
Organic cow.
Organic what?
We buy organic meat.
Oh, okay.
Privately owned.
Lobsters are organic.
We don't buy that.
Okay, fine. Okay. But the point is, you can eat it and it's not a problem. No, you're not dying. Okay, so it's nothing else. That's what I'm saying. So it's all chukim. They're all statutes. They're all things you can understand. They're not. So he says, even though you can't understand, that's what he's telling his son. Even though you don't understand why God said no, you still do it. Okay? So he says, it would be wonderful. Now, here's his thing. It would be wonderful, it would certainly be wonderful if every father were able to explain to his son why he should serve Hashem and perform his mitzvot. And for every son to be capable of understanding on his own why he should be God-fearing. But this is often not the case. Children at times lack the maturity or mental capacity necessary for that understanding. Sometimes something as simple as the lack of life experience alone may be the factor preventing one's child from coming to grips with seeing the value of living a life of Torah. It is therefore vital that children be exposed to the concept of accepting the views of their father for no other reason than because I wouldn't mislead you. A father does not mislead his son. Mark Twain once said, "When I was 18 years old, I thought my parents didn't know anything. By the time I was 21, I was amazed at how much they had learned in 3 years."
Classic,
yeah. So we continue on. That was not right. So he said, so he said again, know the God of your father and serve him, and in this way in this way he will come to be ashamed before the Holy One, blessed be He alone. It is well known and is clear that all men do and say many things in private and think many thoughts, being concerned only that they do not become public knowledge. If all they ever did and spoke, and thought from their youth were known to others, they would be extremely ashamed. How much more so should one be ashamed before the Creator, the Holy One, blessed be He, who looks into one's heart and sees one's thoughts and knows all of one's deeds, words, and thoughts that he has done all the days and never forgets them. So he says, again, the grain, who are you trying to fool? Walking one day, the Kotzker Rebbe noticed one of his students turn to the side of the road and face a nearby wall to avoid seeing a modestly clad woman walking in his direction. The Rebbe approached and whispered into his student's ear that it would be better to look at the woman and think of the wall rather than to look at the wall and think of the woman. There you go.
Which Rebbe was this?
The Kotzker Rebbe. The Kotzker Rebbe is known to be very sharp. What?
I'm going to have a good one with this one.
Yeah. But that is the old story of the Gemara, where two rabbis were walking. A rabbi and a student were walking, and so there was a young lady at the river. So the rabbi picked her up, carried her across the river, put her down, and so on and so forth. The student is floored by this. Can't understand how the rabbi could touch this girl and carry her. Can't think about it. So he's walking, and he's bothered. Finally, he asks the rabbi, how could he do it? He said, what? He said, pick her up. He said, oh, her? You mean the one I picked up and put down, and you're still carrying? You're still carrying. I put her. She meant nothing to me. I picked her up and put her down. You're still carrying her. What are you, crazy? Okay. But that's what it is. So it's better to look at the woman than think the wall, than to look at the wall and think the woman. Okay. Whoever gets a book on the Kotzker Rebbe's statements, you'll see he's very sharp with that. He doesn't. He's known not to pull punches. Okay. So he says there are 4 levels of shame. If one is ashamed to transgress in public, but does so in private, as it says, he steals the mind of the Almighty, being ashamed before men and not before the Blessed One. His evil is extremely great. And he says this is tantamount to a burglar stealing in the dark of night, so that he will not be seen. If he is brought to justice, he pays double payment for showing more fear of man than of Hashem. On the other hand, a thief robs in broad daylight, showing no more fear of man than of Hashem, pays only that which he stole. Okay, fine. If one is number 2, if one is ashamed before men and refrains from sins even in private, fearing that it will become known to men and that he will be shamed before them, about such a person our sages have said that virtuous conduct, even not for the sake of heaven, will result of virtuous conduct for the sake of heaven. Okay, again, lo lishma, bo lishma. If I don't do it for the sake of heaven, but I do it, I'll come to doing it for the right reason, right? People don't always do things for the right reason. They do it because, whatever, they give money because they want people to put plaques up for them. Well, sooner or later, they'll do it for the right reason. They don't always come to famous stories of getting kids to go to services is very difficult. Okay, it's very, very, very difficult. So what happens is, some kids go naturally, because that's what they saw. If you're Zolcha, if you merit that sort of child, it's fantastic. Don't take this advice. Other people don't always get that. And again, they're brought up religiously, everything is there, parents go, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I know of a person who said to the child, okay, the child didn't want to go to Minyan, they want to wake up late. So he said, I'm going to pay you to go to Minyan. Every day you go to Minyan, I'm going to pay you $1. Okay, and $1 in those days meant something, fine. Today, you'd have to probably give $10 to mean something. But whatever, so the kid oh yeah, I get $1, great. He went in the morning, went in the afternoon, and the mother, every time, boom, here's your $1, here's your $1, here's your $1. It took 3 weeks, that's $21, cost him $21, $42, and then the kid said, when he came home, the mother put the $1, he said, Ma, keep your $1. That's enough. I have to go to shul.
Mature kid.
What?
Mature kid.
Right. He said it. Well, it was. But I want you to know, it wasn't even. I think it was more than that. I think it was, because I know the person. I think it was just a shame. He was ashamed. The busha worked the other way. That he. Right. He said, I can't keep doing this to my mother. I know she wants, and I know I should do it. And I'm going to get money from her if I really want it. It's not a big deal. So why should I take her money for this? I think that's where he was coming from. Again, some people, as adults, we get paid to go to Minyan. They have what, Kola Bolka, right? Where you go to learn and so on and so forth. So now they pay you to do that.
Some guys just need to get out of the house, so that's like a payment.
That's a payment too, right? Okay. But again, all these things are lo lishma, but sooner or later, not for the sake of them, but sooner or later, you'll do it for the right reason. It's never wrong to start doing it for the wrong reason. It's never wrong. You should always start. The point is just start doing it. You'll mature, and you'll do it for the right reason, normally. And let's say you don't ever do it for the right reason, well, you still get credit. Right? At least you're doing the right thing all the way across. I'll give you another one. I always tell people, you have to give 10% of your income, net income. Give it to charity. You'll never lose. You'll never lose. So everybody knows that if I give 10%, God's going to pay me back. It's a good investment market, right? It's a great investment. So what happens is, so somebody hears that, they say, okay, I'm making blank dollar. I'm making $100,000. I'm going to have to $10,000. No problem. I'm giving $10,000, and I'm going to get it back because God said I'm going to get it back. And when he doesn't get $10,000 back, She says, don't worry, it means I didn't, they convinced themselves. Say, God gave it back to me some other way. No, it doesn't have to be cash. It could be vouchers. It could be this, it could be that. Whatever it's going to be. I got my money back. Fine. So, and if I didn't, God's going to take care of me, okay? That's because I'm doing it because I want the payback. I'm not doing it for L'Shem Shamayim at that point. L'Shem Shamayim means I don't want anything back. That's the concept of that's the whole connection of Meiser. If I give Meiser, but I don't expect anything back, that's not. I'll get more than I could have ever wanted. I just told everybody that. It's 30 minutes into this thing. Told everybody that. There's no guarantee I'm right. If you're going to do it now because I'm really doing it for you, God, and then you're looking, well, I didn't get it back. Tough luck, okay? You didn't do it. There's proof you didn't do it for God because it's the mitzvah. You're doing it because.
Off tangent, but this is exactly the reason I tell this very often to people. I see why some people don't want to have eulogies when they pass away, where people praise them to high heaven, because they have no idea what their mindset was when they did the things that they did. And all you need to do is have them publicize everything from, and he did this wonderful, and he did, meanwhile, who knows what the person's mindset was. And then in heaven, the angels, the prosecuting angels are like, yeah, you don't even know half the story. This guy really did it. And he ends up in a worse situation when he gets up there to heaven because he never really did it with the right mind frame. But people don't know that.
Okay.
So that's why I don't understand where eulogy comes in here, because I feel like it messes things up.
No. The truth is, a eulogy is supposed to make us learn from the person's life, and that it's not how rich he was or what a great father he was, but what the mitzvot were that he did. And if they can inspire us to do mitzvot, then it's worthwhile telling the stories, regardless of what the reasons of the stories were. So that's really why you're doing it. You also want to make the family feel better. For family is grieving at this point. They just lost a loved one. So you want to make them feel better. So you tell stories that they may not have known. As the person has had to give eulogies, the best one is when the kids say, I didn't know that. Wow, I didn't know that about my father or my mother, whatever the case is. Didn't know about my aunt. And it brings them comfort, because one level gives them comfort. The other level is it gives them something to talk about during the Shiva week, to say, did you know that they did that? And again, it opens up, now everybody starts sharing stories. So what you're doing is opening up. What? Again, the prosecuting, we say that the only thing that goes up to heaven with you, the only thing that accompanies a person, is his merits and demerits. Let the war begin. So again, even if I did the mitzvah, not L'Shem Shamayim, I have my own reasons for doing it, it's still a mitzvah, bottom line. Right? If I pay my bill, regardless of why I pay the bill, it's paid off. There's nothing to talk about. Right? So that's what I'm saying. The eulogy, what the person is talking about, doesn't cause the angels don't say, oh yeah, we play the videotape, and they can see that's his hell. He has to watch his videotape and say, I did that. Oh my God, there's no defense for what I've done. But at the same time, if you did it right, he can say, whoa, I did it right. I did what's right. Okay, my reasons were lousy for it. But I did. I gave my mitzvah. I gave my mitzvah. I put my tefillin on. I went to minyan. Okay. They think I'm a tzaddik. I know I'm not. That's between you and me. So, but I still did these things. You have to pay me for that. You can't punish me for doing what's right, even if it's the wrong reason. You can't punish me for that. You just won't pay me as much. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So then, of course, like I always say on the end, I'm only in sales, not management. God does whatever God's going to do. But if you follow the rules, that seems to be what the rule would be. The logic of the rule. Okay. So he says, number 3. If one thinks, how can I do this evil in private, being more ashamed before the servant than before the master, and stealing the mind of the Almighty? And in this way he is deterred from the transgression. This is a worthy quality. He says, for although he fears and feels shame before Hashem, he does not attribute more importance and recognition to man than to Hashem. And finally, if one is ashamed both in public and in private before the blessed one be he, being ashamed before God as he is before his neighbor. There is no quality higher than this, which is what Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai was advertising. Fear God as much as you fear man, and we're in good shape, because that's, if you can do that, which we normally don't do. Again, we'll do a lot of things in private, we don't do in public. Okay?
What was the difference between the first and the third?
First, it says one transgression public, but does on private.
Right.
And the third was he doesn't do it in private.
Doesn't do it in private.
He won't be doing private either. So that shows he's equal, he's being more ashamed before the servant than before the master, and stealing the mind. Okay, so that's what you can say. Right. Okay, so I say to say, all who commit, and again, the difference between 3 and 4 is he's not doing it. So the difference between 3 and 4 is, how can I do it because I'm ashamed of man and God? The fourth one is only ashamed of God. Only a busha for God. So that's why that's the best. Okay. I was here to say, all who committed transgression and are ashamed of it are forgiven of their sins. Now that also is an interesting one. He says, that is in the world to come, providing that he suffers punishment in this world. We see this manifested in the case of Saul, King Saul, who was held responsible and punished for the murders committed in the city of Nov. However, since he later felt shame for having ordered the execution of the Kohanim in Nov, he did not lose his share in the world to come. We find that Shmuel reassured him of this when he said, tomorrow in the world to come, you and your sons will be with me. So even though he did something wrong, since he regretted it, that's when Hashem forgave him. It had to be punishment. What was his punishment, by the way? What was King Saul's punishment? That allows him to go ultimately to the world to come. What? Killed in battle, and what is the other thing? Then he would be hanged on the tree by the Gibeonites until the rain came. Okay, so that would hit his children and so on and so forth. And that was the ultimate forgiveness for him. But he had done tshuva before that. He says the shamefaced, I'm in the middle of a word. Okay, yeah. And the shamefaced one to Gan Eden. And he says there that simply because shame will prevent habitual sinning. So the Rambam says that having a sense of shame is one of the greatest gifts that Hashem has granted the Jewish nation. So he says, the sages have said, shame and trustworthiness are interconnected. One who has shame keeps his faith with all men. One who does not keep his faith has no shame. The wise man said, when you have no shame, you will do whatever you desire. And he says, shame is the greatest deterrent to sin. However, once that deterrent is absent, very little stands between man and sin. We'll have to stop there.